Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Unstoppable Dad Project. Appreciate you joining me here for another week on another episode. Before I get into today's podcast, I just want to ask you the same favors I ask you every single week. Please make sure you're subscribed on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. We are on all of them: Apple, Spotify, Google. By you making sure you're subscribed, it helps us get out to more people. Also, while you're there, please give us a 5-star review. You can do that on Apple Podcasts and you can do that on Spotify. Not sure if you can do it on Google yet, but you can definitely do it on those two. That also helps us climb up those rankings and get out to more people who can hopefully, like you, see some value out of what it is that I am doing here with this podcast every single week. Jump on and follow us on the socials as well at The Unstoppable Dad on Instagram and the Unstoppable Dad Project on Facebook. And while you're there, make sure you share it around with your friends and help us grow this. Thank you to those of you that do that and that listen every single week. I appreciate the fact that you take some time out of your week every single day to listen to this. And hopefully what I am providing to you is able to give you some value and some hopefully usable bits of information to go out there and action and make some improvements in your life in the way that you want to improve your life. So this week, I wanted to have a talk about something that I've been thinking about for a little bit, and it is you would have heard a saying, or most of you should have heard a saying, or may have heard a saying, whichever end of the spectrum you're on with this one, but you've probably heard it: how you do anything is how you do everything. And I've been thinking about that particular sentence for a while because there's a lot of instances in life, and I think everybody, I don't actually think that's true for anybody in life. I think even if you look at some particular high achievers, if you look at people in different spaces in life, how they do anything is not how they do everything. Now, there's always exceptions to the rules. There's exceptions to any rule that you put out there or any statement you want to make, and everything is very context dependent. But if I look at it from the point of view of in my life, there are things that I have done exceptionally well over my now 40 years in life that I have been super consistent with, that I have done well with, and that I have done. But then while I've been doing well on those particular things, there are other elements of my life that have suffered. And my way of thinking around that particular topic is how you do anything could be how you do everything. Because I don't think if you are a high achiever in a certain aspect of your life that you maybe have prioritized time for other things in your life. You hear it all the time. There was a documentary I watched a little while ago about, say, Ric Flair, right? And if you're an old wrestling fan, you know who Ric Flair is. But anyway, Ric Flair is what used to be a WWF wrestler from back in the day. And basically, to cut down the whole documentary, obviously he excelled. He was the top of the top during his era of wrestling, but he was a horrible dad. Like, he was never present. He was never able to do things. Now, there's some character issues there that this documentary puts out for him, where it's like there are certain elements of his character where he was doing things that weren't becoming of a good father, but he was exceptional in a particular aspect of his life, but in another aspect of his life, he was just not. So this saying that how you do anything is how you do everything, especially for high achievers, I don't actually think that's right. You look at somebody like Jon Jones, if you follow the UFC, he is probably the greatest combat sport athlete of all time, arguably. But if you look at his resume and what he's done with inside the octagon, you would have a pretty good case to say that. Now, there are some other people that you could throw in there, obviously. People like George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva during their eras, Mighty Mouse Johnson, those types of people. But if you look at inside the octagon, he is probably, arguably, if not the greatest of all time to ever do it, especially after what has recently happened with the heavyweight title. Now, if you look at his life outside the octagon back in the day, the guy was, he made some very questionable decisions, extremely questionable decisions. So you can't use that particular topic for him because it's obvious that how he did something is not how he did everything. In fact, he had this singular focus in what he was trying to achieve to become the greatest in the world in the cage. And actually, as a result, almost everything else in his life suffer. And they're just two instances. And I'm sure if you look around and you look at different overachievers, you see it all the time. And I've come up against it, one, in my life, but also two, in the lives of the people that I coach. People who have been hyper successful in business, but have neglected their health over that time. So when I've been thinking about this, I'm like, how can we reposition this statement to make it a bit more powerful, especially around when you're trying to make a change? And that's where the thing that I keep coming back to is how you do anything could be how you do everything. And the way also, if we were to unpeel that a little bit more and we were to unpack that, another way I've really thought about this is how you do something you enjoy and or deem necessary is how you could do everything. Because I think when we enjoy something or we deem it necessary, i.e., if we are successful in business, but we maybe have neglected ourselves and our health, we deem the fact that we need to succeed in business necessary for whatever reason we need to, or being successful in our career or in our job, because we either need to provide, we deem it necessary due to something we want to achieve, or maybe we enjoy doing it. We enjoy the process of that particular thing. And the reason that we have kind of let go or not been successful in another element of our life is because we either A, don't enjoy it, or B, we haven't actually deemed it necessary to apply ourselves to that area of our lives right now. And if you have the potential to excel at something in your life, then I believe you do have the potential to excel at everything in your life. Now, there could be a lot of other reasons why you're avoiding it, especially if you are someone who has obtained a level of success in another area of your life. I think there are two, maybe three areas where this could be, where the reasons why you could be avoiding it. Firstly, it could be because you're scared of the work that you need to achieve. Now, I don't believe that for a lot of people when they have had some level of success in another area of their life, because they know what hard work is because they've had to do it in some other area of their life. So I don't necessarily think that's the thing, but for some people, that's what it is. They're scared of doing the work. Or to add into that and to dovetail into that, it's maybe not that they're scared of the work, but they're scared of their ability to do the work. They don't have that trust or belief in themselves to follow through with the work that they know is required in order to make the change in that area of their life. And you could also add in an extra part to that. Because of that, they're potentially scared of looking silly. They're potentially scared of looking like a beginner or being in that beginner stage of doing something new. And especially if it's somebody who has had a high level of success or even a reasonable level of success in another area of their life, going back into that beginner stage in life is a very, very daunting thing. And it's not that you're going back to a beginner stage overall in life. It's just that you're undertaking something new, or you're undertaking something that's going to be uncomfortable. And there is going to be an element where when you're starting out, you're going to look silly. And you're going to be a beginner, and you're going to have to learn, and you're going to have to start from the bottom and build up. So it's not that, I don't believe for a lot of people it's actually this being scared of doing the work. They're scared of the potential consequences of how it makes them feel around the work that needs to be done. That feeling like I'm a beginner, that feeling of inadequacy that comes with starting something new, that feeling of, I'm just not very good at this. And that lack of confidence around doing that. And that lack of confidence could come from a lack of knowledge, maybe. It could come from a lack of knowing on how to implement a particular strategy. But there's a really shortcut way around that. There's a really shortcut way around not like a lack of knowledge, or a lack of knowledge around the steps you need to take to implement a change or move something in a right direction. Like, you go and find somebody who has done that before, and then you get them to help you with the path. But then you still have to start off on it, and you still have to do that work. And for a lot of people, and a lot of people especially I deal with, and kind of looking at some of these other instances that I spoke about, I don't believe it's actually that they're scared of doing the work. It could be. There could be an element of that. But I think there's a little bit more to that. And once you kind of unpack it and peel that back a little bit more, it's not necessarily the work itself that's the problem. It's the feelings associated with starting again and feeling like you're a beginner. Because that's a very hard thing. It's something that I've actually been a little bit more appreciative of over the last little while, because I have been a little bit reflective on my life. I just turned 40 this week. I also, if you keep up with my socials, I've just received my brown belt in jiu-jitsu, which is something I've been doing for 8 years. And I've been a little bit reflective on the different stages in my life and how I've had to shift and how I've had to start something new again. And then thinking about the roadblocks that I've come up against, why things have failed, why things have worked, and how hard it has been to reset and restart in something new. And a lot of that has come back to, if I've avoided doing the work, I am scared of looking silly. I am scared of being a beginner and looking like a fool and feeling like a fraud, because I have to ask questions in order to actually start to move these things forward. So when you're looking to make a change, especially if you've been successful in another area of your life, why are you avoiding it? Yeah, I think you need to ask yourself this question, because there's always a way to get things moving in the right direction. And as I said, the saying that I would almost shift this to, when you are asking yourself this question, is not how you do anything is how you do everything. It's how you do something you enjoy and deem important or deem necessary is how you could do everything. So why are we not deeming this important enough to actually start to take some action and move it forward? And why are we avoiding it? Because it's probably not that you're scared of the work. Doing the work, and once you get going, is the easy part. And that's how you build confidence. But starting to do the work is sometimes a mental barrier or a mental roadblock, which for me, and things that I've looked to achieve and looked to change in life, I know, like looking back on that now and even looking at certain things now that maybe I've avoided taking action on, a lot of it has to do with, no, I'm not necessarily scared of the work that needs to be done. I'm scared of failing, but into that, I'm scared of looking silly around the work that needs to be done, because in my mind, I've built up a level of proficiency in certain areas of my life. So to be able to step back and be a beginner again, it's a hard step to take, and it's a very humbling step to take. And it requires you to remove your ego and put that aside in order for you to progress forward. It is a little bit of one step back, two steps forward. You need to take that step back so you can take that step forward. And if you're avoiding it and you're not deeming it necessary, then why are you avoiding it? And addressing that situation and addressing that mindset is potentially the thing that you are going to need in order to actually move yourself forward and make that change and take some action on what you need to take action on in order to get everything going in the direction you want it to go. And it may be that you still don't deem it as necessary. It might be a little thing that's niggling in the back of your head that's like, I think I need to change this. I think I need to change this. And it's just that it doesn't rise high enough on your list of priorities in order for you to make a change on it. And I would say on that, to start to close this out, if it is something like your health or your well-being and prioritizing time for yourself or working on your mental health, time is going to pass no matter what you do. And there has been a lot of cautionary tales that I have come up against in my coaching career where people have gotten to the point where the choice of whether they take action on it or not has been taken out of their hands. There has been times in my coaching career where I've met people where they need to take super drastic action in order to make a change. Otherwise, there are going to be dire and detrimental effects. And if there's something that's burning within you where you think you need to make a change and you're putting that off, it may be looking at the fact that you need to make it rise on your list of priorities in order to make a change, because you don't want to get 5 years down the track and be thinking, geez, when I first started thinking about this, I should have done it. Because then the level of urgency, the level of necessity around whether you actually have to make a change or not is so high that then it is going to affect other areas of your life. Other areas are going to suffer because you are going to have to make such a drastic change and swing the pendulum so far in the other direction that something else is going to fall off your plate. We only have a finite amount of time in the day. And when we feel the urge to change something and we need to change, and we feel we need to change something, if we do it in that moment rather than putting it off, there's a chance that we can do it in a sustainable way where it doesn't necessarily affect everything else that goes on in our life. Whereas if you leave it, time's going to go whether you do something on it or not. Again, that's something I've been very reflective on. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, entering my 5th decade on this earth, going around the sun for the 41st time. It's also got to do with the achievement that I reached this week, because looking back on that in retrospect, starting that journey 8 years ago, it definitely doesn't seem like it's been 8 years, but it has. And that 8 years was going to pass whether I did that or not. And I'm glad that I made the decision to step in and be a beginner again in that aspect and that element. And I'm thankful that I did, because I wouldn't want to get to the stage that I'm at now and be thinking, geez, I should have started that 8 years ago. I did, and it's great. But there are aspects of my life where I'm thinking, geez, I really needed to take action on this 12 months ago or 2 years ago, and I didn't. And now I'm starting to take action on those things. There is an element of regret where I wish I had have started doing it earlier. However, I've also used that regret for a bit of fuel to make sure that I keep going with it. But if there is a change that you are looking to make, if you know there is something that you haven't deemed necessary in your life, then you need to make sure that it doesn't get to a point where you have no choice but to prioritize it. Because if you do it now, you can do it in a way where it's not going to affect other elements of your life. But if you do it when it's a forced necessity, there is the possibility that when it gets to that point, it is going to filter in and affect other important areas of your life that you may not want it to affect. So just remember, I don't believe that how you do anything is how you do everything. I think how you do anything is how you could do everything. It is your potential to do it. And also, if you don't feel like you have been successful in any element of your life, your potential is higher. So pick something that you enjoy and seem necessary and go all in on it. Because I think that we can all exceed and we can all reach a higher potential than where we're at the moment. We just need to apply ourselves, we need to do the work, and we need to understand that there's a long and involved process for success in any area or any element of our life. And it's not all going to be smooth sailing. But as long as we keep showing up, we keep doing some smart directed work, we're going to be able to move in the right direction, and eventually our own version of success is going to show itself. So that is it for this week. I appreciate you joining me once again. Just to finish off, make sure you're subscribed, share it around with anybody who you think will get some value from this. Appreciate it, and I will see you next week. Goodbye.